It was New Year's Day 2014. I had gone to the movies with my mom, and little did I know that sitting in that theater 8 years ago was a memory I'd have for the rest of my life. Now, if you asked me about a year ago if I could remember anything about this movie, well, I could probably only really tell you it was starring and directed by Ben Stiller. But besides that, it's been so long that I could really only have told you one thing: how it made me feel. And I left that theater with a million racing thoughts, but one concrete enough to break through. I knew I had never seen anything like this before. So rewatching this for the first time 8 years later, I was scared. I was afraid of seeing a movie that wouldn't hit in the same way it did when I was a kid. And don't get me wrong, you should never hold that expectation in the air. Everything was better as a kid. But even 8 years later, I'm amazed at the fact that this movie, to me, still manages to hold a beautiful message that I can connect to in two very different stages of my life. This is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. From the start, this movie gives off blue, like baby blue, and the mountains, the offices, the eyes. I mean, it's even on the DVD cover. It all gives off that hue of the sky we see every day. It's usually a symbol of peace and serenity, and you can't help but see that tone echoed throughout the movie. Cinematographer Stuart Dryberg does a wonderful job of making the viewer feel welcome, even if that audience consists of a 10-year-old kid like me. I could feel that warmth in the camera and on the screen, I remember that much. Ben Stiller has fostered in me a love for these wide and square symmetrical shots, opting to record the characters above the waist, not too close, but not so far away that we feel distanced from the characters. I remember Walter's attire, his beige jacket and tucked-in shirt with the tie. So professional and so cool, I thought. And I don't know why, but these scenes are still hitting for me. Maybe even more than they did when I was a kid. I'm jumping up and down on the edge of my seat because of these montages, these collages with Arcade Fire and Rogue Wave. I mean, they just make me jump. They make me happy. And it feels like I'm staring at a reflection of my 10-year-old self. Ben's a very visual director. Like that sweet, sweet eye candy, and you can see similarities in his work and other projects today. And a lot of these attributions to visual storytelling are probably the same reasons why I had such a special connection to it at such a young age. We can all try to remember the lines, the plot, the character arcs of what we love, but at the end of the day, it will eventually come where you forget all that. And the thing you remember is a lot of that emotion, that weight attached to how it looked, how you took in those colors and shots. Those stills will be ingrained in your head for a very long time. And I think Walter Mitty gets that right. A story can survive in more ways than one, and it doesn't have to be solely on the writing. At such a young age, everything is new and fascinating. And if Walter Mitty makes sure to excel, it does it aesthetically. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty covers something universal. A tale of a reserved man who daydreams. Walter develops the negatives for photographers who follow the danger, while he sits in the office waiting on the sidelines. And while he dreams, he misses out on the chances to act. There's no dreamlike sequence that happens when Walter disassociates. The fantasies bleed from reality into the next scene, and if they weren't so fantastical, you'd have a hard time figuring out if they were real or not. And I think that was a purpose past me might have related to very heavily. That universal struggle we all feel, to break past our shackles, because we could die tomorrow and all that crap. So we have to live life now, in the moment. It's such a common message, one so broad to get right, but so basic to get wrong, but so permeating that anyone can get behind it. A citizen devoted to a dream, and finally deciding to wake up. Now, it is hard for me to try and figure out how I as a kid was feeling when I saw this, but I think if a 10-year-old me could tell me what he loved so much about this movie, it was that he could understand it, because it is a very simple story. Nerd character becomes cool Chad, gets the girl, faces the dick, and learns how to step out. It's very much a fairy tale. These characters are put in these preordained script roles. Hero, villain, friend, lover. That can be a valid reason why many people dislike it. It doesn't feel real. It feels like a format. But I would argue that this is one of the many reasons The Secret Life of Walter Mitty succeeds. I mean, that's what a story is, essentially. A character changing throughout a journey and becoming someone else. Doesn't that sound a lot like life? Every day we fantasize of being the hero, of defeating the villain, of falling in love. even though it's more complicated than that. We ignore the gray areas, we try to simplify, to add story cues, to try and give a reason to everything. I think those cliches that are criticized in a lot of feel-good movies are the same ones that keep us going. Because at its heart, Walter Mitty is a feel-good movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. We like familiarity, something to point out to try and organize a lot of the chaos in living. So those formulas don't have to be boring just because they are inside the box. They're called cliches for a reason. It can make us feel inspired, happy to be alive, and ready to live in the moment. That life we are always fantasizing in our head is the one we could be living right now. And Stiller directs with that message, inspired by humor, love, and imagination. That feeling of hope, of possibility, what is more real than that? Walter slowly becomes a person living outside of his daydreams, and instead a person capturing the present moment in the real world. And his journey to find a missing negative brings him to realize that it doesn't even matter what he's been searching so long for. It's that ultimate message that anyone can get behind. Carpe diem and all that. I really love Ben Stiller, and I don't know what it is about this movie, but his face is really just so satisfying to look at. And he is a great director, not just comedy, but other genres too. This and his new TV show Severance are great examples of him coming into that circle and proving himself. I urge you to go check them out. Rewatching this movie required a lot of courage for me. I mean, to me, I thought it meant sacrificing that moment as a kid and possibly staining that experience if the movie didn't live up to what it had meant to me all those years ago. But now I know that experience is the past, and nothing can change how I felt leaving that theater with my mom. I was a different person after that, but then I was a different person again the next day, and then the next. We're always changing, and those experiences mean nothing if we don't take them in when we're given them. So watching again, I could have been disappointed, but that only means I have something to learn, to grow from. Holding on to fantasies or past memories of regret only keep us further from reality, from that present moment. And Walter Mitty announces a mantra so international that it will speak to me in different ways for the rest of my life, no matter how many times I watch it or where I am in my life. Because part of me is still that 10-year-old kid in 2014, fascinated by the power of cinema.